Today we're covering foundation for part 2. And foundation 4 is microdense balanced nutrition. I got the words mixed up there, but it's balanced microdense nutrition. And there probably is some confusion around this because when I say microdensity, supplements might come to mind, and that's not exactly what I mean, although that they can come into play. So when cultivated properly, the food that we grow in our animals and from the ground actually carries a dense amount of microparticles, vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, other things, other elements that help us with cellular reconstruction and building. So it doesn't just take protein to build your muscles and your cell walls. It doesn't just take fat, phospholipids. It doesn't just take sugar to fuel your fire for your engine. It actually takes some of these microelements to make all of the macronutrients work. In fact, I like to think of it as your macronutrients are the large molecules that carry the microelements necessary to actually hold us together. And so that's the densely nutritious part. I would venture to say most things that are shelf stable are actually not very densely nutritious, even if they're fortified. So what you're looking for are things that have been able to cultivate sunshine in their growth process, because sunshine triggers biochemical responses. Also absorb proper nutrients from the soil, so you want to make sure the soil has been cultivated, and then lots of hydration and water and all of the things necessary for something to grow is what we actually want to consume. So what that looks like typically is getting back to quote unquote whole foods. So the caveat with that and microdensity is that if you're eating whole foods or consuming whole foods that are high in sugar, so just keep this in mind, the health and wellness industry wants to make money, and I believe that there's an element of confusion that they monetize off of. But a carb is a sugar is a carb is a sugar, and yes, to a certain extent they may or may not impact you, depending on if it's a fiber or sugar alcohol or different kinds of carbs. In that manner is going to impact you maybe higher or lower, but a carb is a sugar is a carb is a sugar, and at the end of the day you're looking for low glycemic. So if it's on the low glycemic scale, less than between 30 and 50, 30 if you're trying to release inflammation and weight, 50 if you're looking for maintenance. That's how I would think about carbs and sugars. So on the sugar molecule or carb molecule, a lot of our micronutrition is delivered, but also sugar in and of itself, the molecule will collect or pull water towards it because water follows the path of least resistance. So if you're eating a food that's high in sugar and low in nutritional density, whether it's a whole food or a shelf-stable food, you probably are actually pulling from your reserves and draining them out your kidneys, your excretion methods, so kidneys and liver and colon, versus actually using the micronutrition. So this is where the balance between sugar and dense nutrition, actually the scales need to be tipped towards densely nutritious and lower carb with lots of protein and healthy fats, so that you can actually use the micronutrition to rebuild your muscles and your cells and your skin and all the organs and things that your body is made of. So dense nutrition really has to be more important than carb consumption, and most shelf-stable foods are higher in carbs and lower in nutritional density, so you're actually depleting your stores, which I just said, but hopefully this is in another way if I didn't make sense prior to this. So dense nutrition, if you can't get it in the foods that you're eating that's grown out of the ground because you're consuming foods that have been grown in depleted soil or animals that have been fed grains and GMO byproducts and seed oils and that kind of stuff, then you might have to supplement in like a bioavailable multivitamin, probiotic. If you're not getting your sunshine from the sun, you might need to be supplementing in a vitamin D supplement and getting your omega-3 fatty acids. So those are the 4 basic ones, and then outside of that, all supplementation is individualized. There's no one size fits all for anyone because we all have a different makeup, just a tad different makeup that may or may not need different supplementations or adaptogens or supports at any given season in our lives. So somebody who's pregnant versus somebody who's trying to lose weight versus somebody who's an athlete probably needs a different combination of nutritional, micro-dense nutritional supports along the way. That being said, covering the 4 basics that need to be either in your food or supplemented in is a bioavailable multivitamin. So that carries your vitamins and your minerals and basic elements needed to be alive. The second are probiotics. So you want to cultivate your gut bacteria so that you can digest your foods really well and utilize all of the nutrition that you're consuming appropriately. And also there's an element of like keeping your microbiome balanced so that if you do consume a bug or are exposed to a bug that is new to you, you have a whole herd of other microbes to help you defend itself. The third one is vitamin D. So from the sunshine, if you're able. If not, then I also like the idea of a vitamin D lamp because that's closer to nature than a supplement. And vitamin D is a hormone. It's actually not a vitamin. And so you want to be careful supplementing hormones. And then the fourth is the omega-3 fatty acids. And the challenge with omega-3 fatty acids is it does mainly come from fish. We can get it from a few nuts and seeds, but the primary source is typically from fish. Fish is now a concern for like heavy metals, and also the way that we process our omegas can oxidize them in the process or in the storage. So there's a lot to be said for how we get our omegas and what kinds of omegas 3s versus omega 6s versus omega 9s, and in what ratios. But they are necessary for your cellular wall, your phospholipid bilayer. Micronutrition is a dense subject, not to be punny, but it is an essential element that connects a lot of the dots about people who are counting macros and understanding why they're counting what they're counting. It's not just about the fats, proteins, and carbs. It's about what those fats, proteins, and carbs carry into the body so that the cells can then break it, or your chemistry can then break it down. I think of the body as a chemistry lab. Everything that we're consumed gets broken down and then rebuilt, and how it can properly utilize what you're feeding it. The reason that this is 2 parts is because macros and micros have their own separate but connected places, and they tend to be the place where people spend the most time and get the most stuck. So if you have any questions about micronutrition and density and what that looks like for you, or even thoughts on that, drop it in the comments, and then I'll catch you in Foundation 5.